"You're not my son anymore, Theo," my stepdad bellowed, his face purple with fury, the front door slamming behind him like a gunshot that echoed in my chest. I was 17, backpack slung over one shoulder with everything I owned. A change of clothes, my sketchbook, and a crumpled $20 bill. And in that instant, the American dream I'd clung to shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. I stumbled into the night, the suburbs of Seattle blurring into a watercolor of regret and rage, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm that drowned out the storm. How had it come to this? One stupid kiss with a boy from school, caught on a neighbor's Ring camera, forwarded anonymously to my family like some twisted vigilante justice. Mom was gone. Cancer took her 2 years ago, and now Dad. No, he wasn't Dad anymore. He was the man who'd traded his grief for hate, and I was the collateral damage. Hitchhiking my way downtown felt like chasing ghosts, the truckers' wary glances confirming what I already knew. I was invisible, a kid with nowhere to go in a city that chewed up dreamers and spat out survivors. By dawn, I'd washed up at a youth shelter in Capitol Hill, the kind of place where the fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets, and the air smelled of instant coffee and despair. That's where I first saw Lucas. Leaning against the check-in counter, his sharp jawline shadowed by a day's stubble, green eyes scanning the room like he owned it, even though his clothes hung loose on a frame that screamed, "Been here too long." He was 20, 2 years older than me, with tattoos snaking up his forearms, faded ink of anchors and roses that hinted at a life adrift. "New blood?" he asked, sliding a styrofoam cup of watery Joe my way without waiting for an answer. His voice was low, gravelly, like he'd smoked one too many Marlboros under overpasses. I nodded, throat too tight to speak, and he just smirked, that crooked half-smile that made my stomach flip despite the chaos in my head. "Name's Lucas. Don't worry, kid. This ain't the end of the line. Just a detour." We talked that first night, huddled on sagging cots in the common room while the other kids snored or scrolled TikTok on cracked phones. I spilled it all. The kiss, the video, Dad's homophobic tirade laced with Bible verses he'd never cracked open before Mom died. He said I was an abomination, I whispered, sketching absent-mindedly in my book, a stormy sea swallowing a lighthouse. Lucas listened, really listened, his knee brushing mine in the dim light, sending sparks I tried to ignore. Abomination? Nah, Theo. Sounds like he's the one drowning in his own bullshit. You're just waking up. By week 2, Lucas had become my anchor. He'd been on the streets since 16, kicked out by his own folks in Tacoma after they found his Grindr app open on the family laptop. Bible Belt bullshit, he shrugged. But his eyes darkened when he said it, like the wound was still raw. We scavenged together, dumpster diving behind Pike Place for day-old pastries, busking with his guitar on street corners where tourists tossed quarters like lifelines. He taught me how to spot the safe spots. The underbelly of the monorail tracks for dry sleeping, the LGBTQ center on Broadway for free showers and job leads. There was something magnetic about Lucas, a quiet intensity that pulled me in like the tide. We'd crash at the shelter when beds were open, sharing earbuds under threadbare blankets, listening to Bon Iver's falsetto croon about skin and bones. "This one's for the lost boys," he'd murmur, his breath warm against my ear. And I'd pretend it was the music making my pulse race. Romance crept in slow, like Seattle fog, stolen glances over shared ramen, his hands steadying me when I tripped on uneven sidewalks, the way he'd hum off-key to make me laugh after a bad day. But suspense hung over us like the perpetual drizzle. Dad hadn't let go. He'd filed a missing persons report, painting me as a runaway delinquent to the cops. One afternoon, as we huddled in a coffee shop dodging the downpour, my burner phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I know where you are, son. Come home before you ruin us all." My blood ran cold. How? A shelter volunteer? One of the kids snitching for a reward? Lucas saw my face drain and snatched the phone, his jaw clenching. "Block it. He's bluffing." But I could see the worry flicker in his eyes. He knew the streets weren't kind to ghosts hunted by their past. Our first real kiss happened under the Space Needle, ironic as hell with its saucer shape looming like a UFO over our fragile world. We'd scored temp gigs washing dishes at a tourist trap, pooling tips for a night off the grid. The city lights twinkled below, a mosaic of possibility, and as fireworks cracked for some forgotten holiday, Lucas turned to me, raindrops beating on his lashes. "Theo," he said, voice rough with something unspoken, "you're not alone anymore." His lips met mine, soft at first, then urgent, tasting of salt and stolen hope. It wasn't fireworks. It was a dam breaking, emotions I'd bottled since puberty flooding out in a rush that left me breathless. From there, the romance bloomed fierce and tender. We'd steal moments in Volunteer Park, lying on damp grass watching clouds chase each other across gunmetal skies, his fingers tracing patterns on my palm like he was mapping a future neither of us believed in yet. "Someday," he'd say, propping on an elbow, his green eyes locking onto mine with that intensity that made the world shrink to just us. "We'll have a place. Not some fleabag motel, but real, windows with a view of the Sound, coffee brewing at dawn. You sketching, me strumming. No more running." I'd laugh, but it stuck, that dream weaving into my sketches. Cozy lofts, intertwined hands, a life unapologetically ours. Yet conflict simmered beneath the surface, a pot ready to boil over. Lucas had secrets. Nights he'd vanish without explanation, coming back with fresh bruises or cash he wouldn't source. "Side hustles," he'd mutter, deflecting with a kiss. But I saw the shadows in his gaze, the way he'd flinch at sirens wailing down Aurora Avenue. I pushed once, after he showed up limping from a fall, and he snapped, "Drop it, Theo. Some things you don't need to carry." It stung, that wall slamming down, but love makes you forgive the cracks, at least until they spiderweb into something unbreakable. The betrayal hit like a freight train on a foggy October morning. We'd been crashing at a squat in an abandoned warehouse near the waterfront, a ragtag crew of street kids pooling resources for heat and canned beans. I woke to whispers, slipping out to pee and catching Lucas in the corner, phone pressed to his ear. "Yeah, I got eyes on him," he said, voice low and urgent. "Theo's solid, but he's drawing attention. Your boy's asking questions. Might need to move him." My stomach plummeted. "Your boy?" I burst in, heart hammering, and he froze, green eyes widening in panic. "Theo, wait. Who the fuck are you talking to?" I demanded, snatching the phone. The line went dead, but not before I glimpsed the caller ID. Stepdad. The world tilted. Lucas had been feeding info, my location, my routines, in exchange for what? Cash? A clean slate? "It wasn't like that," he pleaded, grabbing my arm, his touch burning now with betrayal. "He found me first, offered help getting off the streets. Said he'd pay for community college if I kept tabs. I was gonna tell you, Theo. Use it to bargain. Get you back on your feet without the drama." "Liar," I spat, yanking free, tears hot on my cheeks. The squad erupted. Kids yelling, accusations flying. But I was already bolting, backpack bouncing as I fled into the mist-shrouded docks. How deep did it go? Every laugh, every kiss. Had it been a setup? The romance I'd clung to like a life raft now felt like chains, dragging me under. I hitched a ride south, thumb out on I-5, vowing never to look back, but Lucas's face haunted me. That crooked smile, the way he'd hum my favorite songs. Days blurred into a haze of Greyhound buses and cheap motels, landing me in Portland, where the bridges arched like weary sentinels over the Willamette. I crashed at another shelter, sketching obsessively, dark, swirling abstracts of betrayal, anchors snapping free. The emotional wreckage piled up, grief for the family I'd lost twice over, rage at Lucas's duplicity, a bone-deep loneliness that whispered I deserved it all for daring to love who I loved. But humanism has a way of creeping in through the cracks. At a queer youth group, I met kids like me, trans teens fighting for hormones, bi guys navigating biphobia, and shared my story around a circle of folding chairs, voices overlapping in solidarity. "You're not broken, Theo," one said, a wiry kid named Jamie with purple hair. "You're rebuilding." Word traveled fast in our underground network. A week later, as I sketched by the riverbank, a shadow fell over my page. Lucas, disheveled and desperate, hands shoved in hoodie pockets. "I fucked up," he said simply, dropping to his knees in the mud, rain starting to patter again. No excuses this time, just raw confession. He'd taken Dad's money once, enough for a bus ticket out, but couldn't go through with it. I ghosted him after that call. Told him to fuck off, that you're worth more than his poison. Bruises bloomed on his ribs. Dad's PI, he'd guessed, roughing him up for backing out. Suspense peaked that night, the climax crashing like a Pacific squall. Dad tracked me down, bursting into the youth center during group, face twisted in that same purple rage. "Theo, get in the car now," he roared, security scrambling as kids shielded me. Lucas stepped forward, blocking the door, his voice steady despite the tremor in his fists. "He's not going anywhere with you, not after what you did." Fists flew, Dad swinging wild, Lucas dodging like he'd danced this before, and I froze, torn between the man who'd raised me and the boy who'd saved me. In the chaos, emotions crested, Dad's bellows cracking into sobs. "I lost your mom. Can't lose you two. This," and my own voice breaking free. "You didn't lose me, Dad. You threw me away because you couldn't handle the truth." Security hauled him out, but not before he crumpled, whispering, "Forgive me, son." Lucas pulled me close amid the sirens, his heartbeat syncing with mine, and in that raw, rain-lashed moment, I saw it. Not perfection, but possibility. We didn't rush back to Seattle right away. Portland's bridges became our confessional, Lucas and I walking them at midnight, the city lights fracturing on the water like shattered promises we'd glue back together. "I was scared," he admitted one night, wind whipping his hair as we leaned on the steel bridge's railing. "Thought if I played both sides, I could fix us without breaking everything." Stupid. His green eyes searched mine, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen, and I took his hand, calluses rough from guitar strings and survival. "Yeah, it was, but fear's a hell of a drug." Romance rekindled slow, tentative, kisses under sodium lamps, laughter echoing off concrete as we fed ducks stale bread from the shelter kitchen. It wasn't the fairy tale spark of before. It was deeper, forged in fire, laced with the understanding that love isn't blind. It's bruised. Back in Seattle by Thanksgiving, the city felt alien, its evergreens dusted with early frost like nature mocking our thawed hearts. Dad's house loomed in my nightmares, but reality intruded softer. A letter shoved under the shelter door, scrawled in his blocky hand. "Theo, I'm seeing a grief counselor. Turns out my anger wasn't about you. It was about me. Doors open if you want it. No strings. Love, Dad." Humanistic threads wove in unexpected places. I didn't run back. Instead, I started at the community college Lucas had eyed, art classes where my sketches evolved from storms to sunrises, colors bleeding hope onto canvas. Suspense lingered, though, whispers of Dad's PI circling, old squat mates' warning of trouble brewing. One evening, as Lucas and I prepped for our first real date, cheap tickets to an indie flick at the Harvard exit, my phone lit up. A photo of us from earlier, time-stamped that afternoon, caption "Choose wisely, boy, Dad," or someone he'd hired clinging to control. Paranoia gripped me, but Lucas squeezed my shoulder. "We face it together. No more solo acts." The movie blurred, some rom-com about misfits finding home. But halfway through, the theater door creaked, a figure silhouetted in the lobby light. Heart slamming, I gripped the armrest, but it was just a latecomer. Still, the seed of doubt festered. Winter clamped down hard, snow blanketing the sound in deceptive peace. We'd scored a shared room at a transitional housing program. Nothing fancy, peeling wallpaper and a hot plate that sparked like fireworks. But it was ours. Nights blurred into domestic rhythm. Lucas strumming originals about lost boys and found lights. Me sketching him by the window, profile sharp against the glow of passing ferries. Romance deepened in those quiet hours, emotions raw and unfiltered. "You make me believe in tomorrows," he'd say, pulling me onto the sagging mattress, our bodies aligning in innocent tangle, breaths sinking like a duet. No rush, no pressure, just the profound intimacy of souls mending. But conflict brewed anew when betrayal's echo resurfaced. A knock at our door one sleety afternoon. Jamie from Portland, purple hair faded to lavender, eyes wide with urgency. "Theo, your dad's not done. He's got this church group, reclamation ministry or some culty shit, paying kids to lure you back. One almost got Lucas last week." Lucas paled beside me, confirming with a nod. The bruises weren't from a fall. They'd been a warning from a concerned outreach kid. Rage boiled. How dare Dad weaponize faith against the very vulnerability he'd exploited? "He's trying to save me," I snarled, crumpling Jamie's printouts of flyers promising redemption for runaways. But salvation's not a cage. The climax built like a Nor'wester, winds howling through the Chittenden locks as we plotted our stand. Lucas, ever the strategist from Street Smarts, suggested confrontation. Invite Dad to neutral ground, the LGBTQ center where it had happened before, lay it all bare. "No fists this time," he insisted, bandaging a fresh scrape from dodging shadows. "Words. Truth. Let him see you're not the kid he threw out. You're the man he could be proud of." Emotions churned. Fear of rejection's final nail. Hope for the humanistic bridge I'd sketched in my mind. A family redefined, not erased. The meeting was set for a crisp Saturday. The center's community room decked in rainbow banners that fluttered like defiant flags. Dad arrived early, slouched in a folding chair, face gaunt under the harsh fluorescence. No purple rage this time. Just hollow eyes that mirrored my own grief. Lucas sat beside me, hand on my knee under the table, a silent anchor. "Theo," Dad started, voice cracking like thin ice. "I thought I was protecting you. From the world. From myself. But I see now, God, kid. I see what I've done." Tears tracked his weathered cheeks, and for the first time, I glimpsed the man Mom had loved. Flawed, human, reaching across the chasm. I unloaded it all. The terror of that rainy night, the betrayal's sting with Lucas, the nights I'd cried myself to sleep wondering if love was worth the exile. "You didn't just kick me out, Dad. You kicked out your son because he dared to feel." Lucas chimed in, voice steady. "I betrayed him too once. Thought I was helping by spying for you. But love? It doesn't spy. It fights fair." Dad listened, really listened, the room thick with unspoken apologies. No dramatic epiphany, no Hollywood hug, just a tentative nod. A promise of therapy together, boundaries drawn like fresh snow. As we left, snow flurrying soft under streetlights, Lucas pulled me into an alcove, lips brushing my temple. "You were brave as hell in there." Romance sealed the night. A slow dance in our room to crackly radio jazz, bodies swaying in the dim, emotions cresting in whispers of forever. Betrayal's scar remained, a reminder that trust is earned in shards, but so is healing. Spring thawed the city, cherry blossoms rioting pink along University Avenue as our lives stitched forward. Dad kept his word. Weekly coffees at a neutral diner, awkward at first, laced with stories of Mom's laugh, her acceptance he'd buried under denial. "She'd have kicked my ass for this?" He'd chuckle, passing the sugar, and I'd nod, the humanistic arc bending toward grace. Lucas landed a barista gig at a queer-owned cafe, his tips funding guitar lessons for shelter kids, turning pain into purpose. Suspense faded to memory, replaced by the quiet drama of growth. One evening, as we picnicked in Discovery Park, waves crashing below like applause, Lucas dropped to one knee, not with a ring but a sketched keychain I'd made, engraved our detour. "Marime somedi. Theo? When we're ready, no rush." Tears pricked, joy sharp as sea salt. "Yeah," I breathed, pulling him up into a kiss that tasted of salt and sun. Someday soon. In the end, it wasn't a fairy tale. No princes on white horses, just two boys who'd clawed through the underbrush of America to find each other. Kicked out, betrayed, broken but unbroken. We found our way forward, not despite the storms, but because of them. And in that, there's a profound romance. The kind that says, Love wins not by magic but by messy human choice. Summer unfurled lazy and golden over the sound. Fairy horns lowing like contented whales as Lucas and I settled into a rhythm that felt dangerously like normalcy. Our transitional housing morphed into a sublet studio in Fremont. Troll statues grinning up from the streets below. A troll bridge we joke about as our own mythic crossing. Mornings started with his coffee brewing strong, black as his moods could turn, and me sketching at the wobbly kitchen table, charcoal smudging dreams onto newsprint. "You're getting published someday," he'd say, peering over my shoulder with that lopsided grin, fingers brushing my neck in a way that still sent shivers. Romance, in its humanistic core, thrives on these banal graces. The shared grocery lists scribbled with inside jokes, the way he'd hum Springsteen while folding laundry, turning chores into symphonies. But drama doesn't evaporate. It simmers, waiting for the next gust. Dad's progress stuttered. A good week of calls, then radio silence when his church buddies whispered about backsliding. One July evening, as Lucas and I grilled veggie burgers on our fire escape, overlooking a troll's mischievous leer, my phone buzzed. "Meeting tonight. Pray for me?" I showed Lucas, his jaw tightening like a strummed string. "Go if you want, but don't let him drag you under." Emotions tangled, loyalty to the man evolving, wariness of the old wounds reopening. I went to a dingy rec center where folding chairs circled under buzzing lights, Dad's face etched deeper with lines, his confession spilling like cheap wine. "They say you're choosing sin over family," but I told him, "Family's blood and choice, not doctrine." Suspense crept back mid-August, a heat wave baking the city into a pressure cooker. Lucas vanished one afternoon, said he had a gig, but returned hollow-eyed, knuckles split. "Old associate," he muttered, dodging my questions with a deflection kiss. Betrayal's ghost stirred. I remembered the bruises, the secrets. That night, as thunder rumbled distant, I confronted him on our threadbare couch. "No more walls, Lucas. We're in this or we're not." He broke then, voice fracturing. A former street contact, peddling quick cash jobs that skirted legality. Deliveries with no questions asked. "Thought I could shield you from it. Keep us afloat till my music pays." Tears tracked his stubble, and mine followed, emotions crashing in waves. "We're broke, not broken," I said, pulling him close. "Together we hustle clean." The conflict escalated when Dad's church struck back. Anonymous flyers plastered Fremont. "Lost son seeks redemption. Help bring him home." My face, pixelated from that cursed ring cam, staring out like a wanted poster. Kids at the college whispered. Professors offered awkward support, but the stares burned. Lucas fumed, ripping one down in a cafe, drawing eyes. "This ends now," he growled, green eyes flashing storm. We plotted retaliation. Not violence, but visibility. A spoken word open mic at the center. My story scripted raw, Lucas backing with guitar. Climax brewed under the venue's strung lights. Crowd a mix of allies and skeptics. Air thick with anticipation. I took the stage shaky-kneed, mic cold in my palm, voice starting soft. When my stepdad kicked me out for loving a boy, I thought love was a lie. Words poured, the rain-slick exile, Lucas's anchor smile, Dad's evolving shadow. Lucas joined midway, strumming a haunting riff, his harmony weaving our duet. We fell, we fractured, but we rose. Two threads in the American tapestry, gay and unashamed. The room erupted, snaps and cheers drowning doubt. But suspense peaked when Dad slipped in late, face ashen in the back row. He didn't bolt. He stayed, tears glinting as applause faded to silence. After, in the alley green room, really just a storage closet with yoga mats, he approached, hands trembling. "That was you." No apology grand. Just truth, humanistic and halting. "Brut tale of you, of this." Lucas watched wary, but I saw the shift. Not perfection, but progress, a bridge half built. We hugged awkward, bones protruding from months of lean living, and drove home through neon-veined streets, radio crooning Tom Waits about misfits mending. Fall painted the parks in fire, leaves crunching underfoot as we navigated the aftershocks. Lucas quit the shady gigs cold, channeling energy into busking duos. His guitar, my poetry recited over chords. Romance deepened in autumn's hush. Hayrides at farms on the outskirts, stolen cider-sweet kisses amid corn mazes. Emotions layering like fallen foliage. Rich, resilient. Dad joined us once, tentative at a pumpkin patch, carving jack-o'-lanterns with grins that cracked his stern facade. Mom would have loved this, he said, gutting a gourd, and the ache eased, a stitch in the scar. Yet betrayal's undercurrent rippled when Lucas's past resurfaced. A December call from Tacoma. His mom, voice slurred with regret, begging a visit. Holidays alone kill me, he agonized, pacing our studio, shadows dancing from the troll bridge lights below. What if it's a trap, like your dad's church? Emotions ward, forgiveness's lure, fear's grip. I urged him, go, see if there's grace there. I'll hold the fort. He left New Year's Eve, bus ticket clutched like a talisman, and suspense gnawed as snow blanketed the city silent. He returned changed, bruised not in body but spirit, Mom's apologies laced with liquor promises. It's a start, he said, collapsing into my arms, our kiss tasting of resolution and relief. That night, under quilted blankets, we dreamed aloud. A road trip south come spring, chasing sunsets through Cali canyons, sketching and strumming our way to a shared lease. Humanism shone in the ordinary, the way Dad texted memes now, clumsy dad jokes bridging gaps. How Lucas taught shelter kids chords, passing the torch. Winter's end brought renewal, cherry blossoms defiant against frost as we packed for that trip. Climax's echo faded, replaced by the drama of departure. A farewell barbecue at the center, grills smoking with veggie skewers, laughter mingling with fairy horns. Dad clapped Lucas on the back. Take care of my boy. And for once, it landed warm, unforced. As we hit I-5 southbound, windows down to salt-tanged air, Lucas's hand in mine over the gearshift, I realized, kicked out wasn't the end. It was the inciting spark. Betrayal forged us sharper. Love tempered us true. In the rearview, Seattle shrank to a sparkle on the horizon, trolls and needles winking goodbye. Ahead stretched America unspooled. Grit and grace, rain and revelation. We were gay, we were survivors, and in each other's eyes, we saw home. Not a house, but a horizon, endless and ours. The California coast unspooled like a fever dream. Highway 1 hugging cliffs where Pacific waves gnashed at granite like hungry beasts. Lucas drove our borrowed beater, a rust bucket Civic from a shelter buddy. His free hand laced with mine, thumb tracing lazy circles that grounded the whirlwind in my chest. We'd left Seattle with $500 pooled from tips and Dad's no-strings check, a tank of gas, and hearts ballooned with tentative forever. Romance road-tripped easy. Stops at Big's or pullouts for peanut butter sandwiches. His head on my lap as I read Kerouac aloud. Windswept hair tickling my thighs. This is it, Theo, he'd murmur, eyes crinkled against the glare. The detour paying off. Drama simmered subtle at first. Flat tire near Monterey, fixed with YouTube grit and a stranger's wrench, leaving us laughing mud-streaked under stars. But conflict stirred in San Francisco's fog-choked alleys, where we crashed at a hostel in the Castro. Rainbows striped every flag, but eyes followed us. A pickpocket snatching Lucas's wallet mid-kiss, scattering IDs like confetti. Fuck this city, he spat, punching a lamppost till knuckles bled, emotions erupting in the neon haze. I bandaged him in our bunk, whispers turning to sobs. What if we're always one slip from broke? Humanistic anchor. A barista at Phil's, queer and tattooed like Lucas, comped us coffee and a lead on day labor. You boys got fire. Use it. Suspense built in LA's sprawl, palm shadows long as accusations. We'd aimed for Venice Beach boardwalk busking, guitar and verse drawing tips from rollerblading tourists. But betrayal specter phoned in, Dad's voice, hesitant on my cell. Church elders. They know about your trip. Talking lawsuits. Custody even though you're 18. Heart stuttered. He was free, but the threat loomed like smog. Lucas overheard, face storming. Let him try. We're ghosts now. That night, in a hostile bunk reeking of patchouli, emotions crested. His body curled to mine, breaths ragged. I won't lose you to that noise. Kiss deepened to promise, innocent fervor sealing us against the fray. Climax crashed in San Diego, sun-bleached and brutal. We'd scored a beach cleanup gig, eco-volunteering for creds toward a shared art co-op dream. But mid-shift, a van pulled up, disgorging church suits with clipboards and condemnations. Dad hadn't sent them. His voice later confirmed panic. They twisted my words, Theo. But there they were, megaphone blaring scripture at volunteers scattering like gulls. Repent, lost lambs, one bellowed, spotlighting us as Lucas shielded me. Guitar raised like a shield. Chaos erupted. A trans volunteer snatching the mic, chants rising, "Love is love," sirens wailing as cops mediated the melee. In the fray, Lucas took a shove, elbow cracking on concrete, pain twisting his cry. Rage ignited me. I lunged, not violent but vocal, spilling our story to the crowd. Exile's reign, betrayal's bite, love's defiant bloom. Phones captured it, viral spark igniting social media. Street sunrise trending, allies amplifying from Seattle to SoCal. The suits slunk away, tails tucked, but the damage lingered. Lucas's arm in a sling. Our savings drained on our copays. Back at a motel, waves crashing audible through thin walls, emotions poured. His tears on my shoulder, my sketches of the melee turning protest to poetry. We fought, he whispered, and we won. Humanism healed slow, sunsets over La Jolla Coves painting recovery gold. Dad called daily now, voice laced with shame's edge. I'm out of that church. Found a new group, affirming, real. Progress, not perfection. Lucas mended with PT and pluck, strumming one-handed blues that drew tips at boardwalk cafes. Romance rekindled in tide pools, toes dipping cold shallows, his good arm around my waist as we named crabs after exes. That one's betrayal. I'd tease, and he'd laugh, deep and healing, pulling me into salt-kissed embraces. Northbound return traced reverse revelations, deserts blooming defiant with spring wildflowers. In Portland Redux, Jamie hosted a welcome-back bash, bonfire on the Willamette banks, s'mores and stories crackling warm. Dad even drove down, tentative in khakis, sharing a beer with Lucas. You make him light up, son. Awkward but earnest, the humanistic weave tightening. Back in Seattle by May, trolls welcoming us home, we signed a lease on a proper apartment. Fremont walk-up with sound views, walls begging for art. Suspense's last gasp came June. A certified letter. Church suing for defamation over the viral vid. Emotions spiked, court dates looming like thunderheads. But allies rallied. Pro bono lawyers from the center, crowdfunding for fees. Climax redux in a stuffy courtroom. Judge's gavel falling merciful. Dismissed. Free speech prevails. Lucas hooped from the gallery, slinging me into a bear hug, our kiss echoing off marble halls. Triumph tasted sweet. Summer looped full circle. July 4th fireworks bursting over the needle as we picnicked with Dad. His grill master skills redeeming old wounds. Romance, ever the thread, culminated in a quiet vow under that saucer sky. Rings simple, steel bands engraved with detour, exchanged with witnesses of shelter kin. No Vegas glitz, just us, waves of emotion cresting in tears and toasts. To forward, Lucas said, green eyes shining, and I echoed, heart full. Years blurred forward, but that kicked-out night remained origin myth. Rain as baptism, betrayal as forge. We built, my illustrations in zines, his album indie release to acclaim. Family expanded to chosen kin, Dad a steady satellite. America, with its contradictions, cradled us. Gay love not anomaly, but anthem. In the end, the way forward wasn't straight. It curved through storms, emerging sunlit, unbowed.